Hi, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Maria Stankovic. I'm Chief Business Development Officer at Exmo.com Exchange. And today with us at our Ask Me Anything session is Bernhard, who is the representative, who is the CEO of their project eCredits. Hi, Bernhard. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Maria. Thanks for having me.
You know what? Like before I actually start asking you about the eCredits project that is going to be listed, or maybe already listed. I don't know when we're going to be live. I really want to ask you about yourself because your own experience is quite astonishing. I mean, and in my opinion, the way how we usually treat coins and the way how we usually treat different projects is the team. And basically, this is not only our way. You probably know if you raised any money that for most of the investors, the main thing is the team. I mean, any team, like the good team can create literally any project. This is how they say. So please tell me about yourself and how did you end up with eCredits?
Absolutely. Maybe let me start by emphasizing that, of course, eCredits is not a one-man project. So I'm going to happily talk about myself, but all of this is a team effort. And all the people that stand behind me and build this with me are equally important as I am. So I'm just one part of the big gears here that are making eCredits what it is. But yeah, about myself, I started building companies in 2012. And as you can hear by my accent, I'm originally from Austria, which is where I started building companies. And so it's been 10 years now, and I've been in pretty much every industry I can imagine. So I started out in IT. I do have a strong IT background, actually. I wouldn't dare to program anything myself nowadays, but I started out doing that. I then essentially switched over to looking into blockchain on like privately and trying to understand what it is in 2014, which is rather early given how young our industry is. And since I looked into it, I started gaining some interest. And in 2016, one of my companies that I was building up was, I call it iGaming company. Essentially, what we're doing, if you know what fantasy gaming is, we were doing a fantasy game for esports. And
Oh, wow.
back then, we
That's
were
quite
trying to
cool.
raise money and we were looking into different areas. And from Europe, it's very hard to raise money because you don't have a very big esports community, and also you don't have a very big fantasy community here. And so, given my experience with blockchain at the time, we decided, hey, let's try to get into this whole ICO topic because that might be a big thing. And so we started actually building that and talking to regulators. And what we found out is there is no regulation, there is no legislation for that. And so we started talking to, back then it was the Austrian regulator. And essentially what we did back then was the first ever ICO that was approved by a EU regulator.
Oh,
And that's
wow.
where
How
pretty
did
much
you
my
do that?
professional, well,
Was it
that's a long story,
2017?
but
Yeah?
yeah,
Yeah, was it
we did the
2017?
ICO
Wow.
in 2017, yeah.
Wow,
And
that's
the
that's
story behind this
incredible.
is, yeah, it was quite a crazy ride because just to give you some insights into that, to make it happen, we went to the regulator and asked them for their opinion on what we're doing. And they are supposed to answer within a couple of weeks. And they came back to us and said, yeah, to answer that, it's going to take probably a couple of months, maybe half a year, which of course would kill
Oh
a
my God.
company in that stage, right? And so what we decided to do back then was we went to the regulator and said, hey, we are doing this now, but we think it's illegal. So you might want to check on this, right? So we essentially reported ourselves. And if you go to the regulator like that, they immediately start checking on it. And they came back to us after a couple of weeks and said, okay, thank you for reporting yourself. We checked that. And actually, we do not think it is, essentially, I'm not allowed to call it a non action letter, but they told us that what we're doing is not to be regulated. And so
That's
from
quite a
then,
bold
essentially,
move, like to go to, sorry to interrupt you. That's quite a bold move to go to the regulator and report yourself, like, keeping in mind that they might have said that you guys are doing something illegal, which is quite cool in my opinion. Very, yeah,
well, better finding out before you actually start than finding out after
it's
you've
true.
started, right? That's the mindset we had when doing this. Yeah, and from then on, it was just
That's true.
blockchain business after blockchain business. So I've been building an exchange. I'm now at eCredits. I've also founded a couple of associations that advise regulators on how to regulate cryptocurrencies in Austria, in Estonia, and a couple of other countries in the European Union. So I've been quite active, I'd say, since 2014 or 2016 latest.
Yeah, that's quite cool. Yeah, that's quite cool. That's very exciting, especially this story with their regulator. I mean, this is quite bold
Um,
and this is quite brave. Yeah.
there's a lot
Yeah.
more where that comes from. So
Yeah. And you're located now in Luxembourg, right? Or where are
that is
you
correct.
now?
Yes. Pretty much traveling
In
between our
Luxembourg.
offices. So we have some spread over Europe, but mainly I'm located in Luxembourg. Yeah.
And then what about the team? Are they in Luxembourg also, or where they're located?
Yes. So we have
Also
a couple of
Luxembourg.
offices. We have some people in, or actually the main team, the main head offices are located in Luxembourg, followed by Tallinn in Estonia, and we also have some people sitting in the UK. Some of the team is in Switzerland, some of it is in Austria. So we are quite a distributed and decentralized, if you will, team.
That's quite cool. That's very modern. So yeah, I mean that's amazing. And now probably like people already waiting like for credits itself, like for the project. So I would say one thing that like our users, our clients who are obviously watching this interview know that we don't list a lot of different coins if they're not like from top 20 or top 50, but we are usually quite excited about the new ones who are we adding like. But you know, in my opinion, maybe you'll prove me wrong. The more we are going, with this blockchain, the less projects, good quality projects are out there. You know, it feels like everything is already invented in the way. Like, I'm not saying about NFTs. I'm not saying about like some, you know, some maybe even gaming parts of the blockchain, but you know, usually you see you look at different projects and you never say like, oh my god, this is something cool. So when we saw your project, we thought like immediately that it's something cool. Maybe you can explain like in really simple words for our clients, what is it, what is your mission, why have you decided to do that, knowing that you know there are plenty of projects on the market.
Absolutely. And I think it's quite interesting because what we're doing is pretty much making the basic use case of blockchains available to the broad audience or the broad public. So essentially what eCredits is, and we always see it as the daily use crypto that rewards consumers and merchants and empowers local economies. So that's kind of our claim. And what we do in specific is we provide all the tools that people, but also merchants require to use cryptocurrencies in daily life when doing their groceries or when having financial interactions with friends, for example. And the ultimate goal that we have behind eCredits is to allow for people to use their assets in whatever way they want and can imagine. And I specifically say assets because long term we're not just limited to cryptocurrencies. So the way I see eCredits is it's kind of an ecosystem. We do of course have our own cryptocurrency, and that is what we're kind of here to talk about today. But we also support Ethereum, and we will soon support Bitcoin, and we are supporting ERC20 tokens. But even there, we will not stop because we have a lot of partner companies that I've also been part of building in the past. And with these, we will be able to essentially provide more and more assets. And that could be NFTs, but also what I'm looking for in the future is once the market and the regulation especially are ready for this, and we're waiting for Mika quite eagerly here, is
That's wonderful.
securities that we might be able to embed into that ecosystem there. And that is essentially what eCredits is. It's an ecosystem that makes cryptocurrencies more usable than they have ever been.
So, for example, I'm a client of Exmo and I decide to buy the token. And apart from holding it or trading it, what can I do with the token in the ecosystem of eCredits?
Well, maybe let me try to rephrase that question a bit. What would you do if you had some money? Would you just use it on an exchange? Would you just use it to trade somewhere? No, probably you would have it in your wallet. And although, of course, cryptocurrencies are not money per se, but wouldn't it be nice if you could just go to a merchant and use the
Would
cryptocurrencies
be
to essentially do the transaction that you would otherwise be doing with euros and just pay for your dinner, for example? And that is
would be
essentially the
very nice.
platform that we
This
are
is
building.
all right. That sounds really like the future. Seriously, like this is I think this is what current world lacks, actually use case for cryptocurrency, because at the moment you can either like you, of course there are some cases but they're not massive, they're not mass, this is not mass adoption yet. So this is quite cool. So you say that obviously like our client, he can purchase their coin on Exmo, and then he can go to the ecosystem, look at the merchants that you guys have, and can spend this token, not only this token, but also, as far as I understand, also Ethereum or any other cryptocurrencies that you guys support, and buy the product or as a service, right?
Correct, yes.
That's quite cool. That's really cool. So what are the merchants? What can I do? I'm already excited.
We're pretty widespread in terms of industries. So one of my favorite merchants that we have is actually a cat cafe. I'm not sure if you've heard of this concept, but it's like
Oh,
kind of
no.
a coffee shop, and you go there and you drink your coffee, but there's like lots of cats running around and you can pet them. So that's the one end of the spectrum. And on the other hand, we do have restaurants, we do have grocery shops, we do have consultancy even. So in terms of industry, we are not really restricted. And we have been showing quite a bit of growth over the past year. So we started the product live on the market to be usable in April. Right now we're at 1,000 merchants, and we're constantly growing and growing and growing. So yeah,
Quite
we're
cool. What
on our
about
way
dog
to have pretty
cafes?
much everything you need in our daily life. Sorry.
What about dog cafes? I mean, I'm a dog person, so I really you mentioned cat cafes, and this is a silly
That's
question.
a
You
good
don't
point.
have to answer.
Well, I'll still answer it. I don't think we have a dog cafe yet, but if you were to open one, you're very welcome to join eCredits as well.
Yeah, that's quite cool. So, like, I'm just wondering, is it difficult to explain to merchants what is it and what is cryptocurrency is? Maybe they know already, maybe they're eager, or how is it? What I mean, like for you personally, just out of my own interest, how is the process? How does the process look like?
There's two approaches. There are a lot of people by now, because it has had quite a lot of media outreach, know what cryptocurrencies are. And so for these, it's quite easy, because you just go there and you tell them, hey, you've heard about cryptocurrencies, right? Would you like to accept them in your business as well? And most of them are very interested in that, actually, because they've heard of it. And that is why the use case is so nice for us to have, because they just don't know how to accept it, and we're just there and say it's as easy as installing an app, and that's about all you need to do. And then there's the ones,
It's
and
quite
that's actually just a handful, that have never heard of cryptocurrencies, and to them we have a couple of advantages that we tell them about. Number one being, and that of course raises the interest of every merchant: are you accepting credit cards right now? Because we have a solution that is about a third as expensive as a credit card is. And then you have their attention, right? And then you tell them that,
yeah.
as opposed to credit cards, where it takes a couple of business days at best, and in some cases even longer, to receive your money, with us, you would receive your money in a matter of, right now we're at about 1 to 3 seconds. And that's also very interesting for them. And then we go to online merchants, where there's the problem of chargebacks. And just to explain a bit what chargebacks are, that is, for example, you buy something in an online store, and then or you operate an online store, and somebody buys something at your online store, and you fulfill that. So you provide the service or ship the good or whatever it is, and then suddenly you get a message of your credit card provider saying, we got a message that apparently this credit card was stolen, and so we take the money back from you, and you're out of luck because you already provided the service. And so the merchant has to pay for that. What happens if the merchant pays for that? Of course, the prices have to go up, because they have to cover that loss as well, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the third advantage that we offer to them. And then there's the fourth one, where we say, hey, you can do that, and all the other cryptocurrencies that are out there, not all of the others, of course, but most of the other cryptocurrencies, they have that inflation component that goes to miners. And the way we have set up the ecosystem is the inflation component, so newly minted units of the currency, they go to customers. So it's kind of a reward system that we have inbuilt onto the blockchain, but it also goes to the merchants. So both of them benefit if a blockchain transaction is done on the eCredits ecosystem. And
Yeah, it's
at that
quite cool.
point, most of them, they understand it, and most of them are very willing to give it a try. And once they've given it a try and see how easy it is, then they
Yeah,
really like to
yeah.
use it.
Yeah, that's definitely the future. That's 100% the future. And in my opinion, this is the only thing that crypto lacks at the moment, because everyone thinks of the speculations. I hope we can talk also about this in FTX, the whole FTX situation that happened. I'm quite sure that our clients will be very happy to hear your opinion about what happened and about the market in general. But this is exactly where we fail, because even like some of my colleagues and my friends, and they all say that, crypto is only for speculation, for only like either holding it or speculating or trading, which is, yeah. But this is the real use case, how you can make it really, adopted or with the mass people. So yeah, that's quite
Exactly.
cool. That's really cool. So let's move on. And I want to ask you like one question about the why are you guys like this is also, I'm really bad at these AMA sessions. I never ask very nice questions. I usually try to like spice up our discussion a little bit, because I think
Oh,
this is
please go
what
ahead. I like that.
the clients want. I mean, why have you decided to list on the current market? I mean, I'm not allowed to actually ask these questions probably because I'm the representative of Exmo, but I want to know more. What do you want from Exmo? What is your target audience? Why have you decided to go? And yeah, maybe your opinion, maybe to just feel good about myself and the exchange.
So I have quite a long history of knowing Exmo actually. So I think
Oh
the
wow.
first time I heard about Exmo was at uh, I'm not sure what it's called anymore. Token 2049 in Singapore, I think it was, where I first got in touch with the Exmo team, and I still remember it. And that's quite curious because it's always the small things that make you remember it, right? Because I was my suitcase got stuck at the airport, and back then Exmo had one
Oh
of
wow.
those what are they called, like the cases where you can put all your bathroom stuff and so into. And so I took that happily because I didn't have it anymore because it got lost at the airport. And so for the next 2 years, like until 2019, until it finally broke because I really overused it, I always had that Exmo branding in my bathroom. And so that
Oh,
is just a
that's so
brand I've
nice.
known for quite a while. And so
Yeah, I
I
was
also
speaking there.
do.
I'm sorry for interrupting. I remember this conference. I was speaking there. We were there, the whole team. So it's like, it's been really long time ago. That's so cool that you still
Yeah,
remember it. Yeah.
it has been quite a while, yeah, and so ever since I know about Exmo, and so I know a lot of people in the eCredits community, they actually do use Exmo, and so it was pretty straightforward when we thought about, okay, should we look into more listings on other exchanges? Exmo was actually one of the first ones I thought about, because when we're looking at exchanges, we have certain criteria, and usually for a cryptocurrency, you're not in a beneficial situation where you can pick exchanges, but we still took the liberty and said we would like to list only on exchanges that are properly regulated, that are in the EU. And looking at the past weeks, actually, I think that is a very good decision because the Exmo team is not situated on the Bahamas or on the Seychelles and essentially hiding out there. And in case something happens, you're right in the middle of Europe, right? And so that
Yeah,
is
it's true.
the highest criteria that we have. We want the exchanges that we are listed on to be regulated. We want them to essentially do proper due diligence on their customers. We don't want them to be just big washing machines for laundering money. So we actually are a company also based in the European Union, and what we are always claiming is we are working with the regulators. We would like to have a clean slate to work with, because sooner or later there will be more regulation coming, and when it comes to that point, we don't want to be surprised by it. We want to have all the exchanges in line. We want to have all the licenses in line that are required at that point. And if we were to be listed at FTX, and then we were talking about um, regulation and more of that coming, and then we're in the middle of talks to regulators, and suddenly FTX does whatever FTX just did right now, and we're just sitting there, and the regulator is asking us, so what's that with FTX? You were listed on that exchange, right? And then we'd just be sitting there and
Yeah.
saying, yes, we were, but not really connected to them, and that's not a situation I want to be in, right? So we want to do it right from the start, and that's why Exmo was right there.
That's very nice to say, but yeah, obviously about FTX, right? We decided like we touched this topic, so let's maybe like elaborate a little bit. I mean, what happened is a nightmare, in my opinion, and I never was really into, like, I never researched FTX. I never was, first of all, I wasn't the client. And so that's why I never looked into that. But now when you read and you see all this information about them, like how they like was buying the houses for, how they were buying the houses for their employees, how they were like paying them, how like what a mess the company was, that they can't even find the exact number of employees and all these things. So it actually makes me think about the market itself. So we see an example as FTX, but how many of these exchanges are? And FTX was I think it was number two, right, in the whole rating of the exchanges. I mean, judging by the
Yeah,
volumes and
something like
everything.
that.
And they were I still remember that like they were buying the companies, they were investing very like very boldly in the companies, and they were renaming the stadiums. They were buying Formula One advertisement, and that was again, like for me, it was a signal that like something's wrong here, because we are in bear market. Everyone is buckling up for like just trying to spend as little as we can. And it got me thinking into the whole market. Do we actually know something about their other exchanges? Do we, okay, maybe Coinbase, like they post everything for the regulator because they are a listed company. But do we actually know? And what, like with this knowledge, I don't know how to like it's very difficult to think of anything as safe, right? I'm not trying to like convince you not to list the next one. I'm just for our like clients, how to navigate in this world after what happened with FTX. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to state that this was not a fail of blockchain or cryptocurrencies, and thus I do not think that people are really losing trust in cryptocurrencies, because it's very clear if you look at what has been happening over the past couple of weeks, that what happened was that the weakest link was not blockchain, but it was actually the opposite. It was a centralized malicious actor. It was somebody that really meant harm. And that is nothing that has anything to do with cryptocurrency or blockchain in itself. I mean, look at how many banks have done essentially some kind of fraud or have faked their balance sheets or whatnot. That is not a new occurrence. That is not something that blockchain enables. Actually, I think the opposite is the case. Blockchain is more of a protection against these things. And of course, they still happen, and we can't talk that down. But there is an antidote in there, looking at what has happened in FTX. And I'm a big fan of making mistakes and then learning from them and then never making them again. And so, what should be the learnings of FTX for us as a community? So, I'm not just talking for Exmo as an exchange. I'm not just talking about eCredits as a project. What should be the learning of us as a community? And I think there are three learnings, and these are transparency, custody, and knowledge. Transparency, because FTX would not have happened if there was full transparency, like a proof of reserves, or essentially people would know what is happening to the assets that they are storing on the exchange, right? The second one is the custody, because FTX would not have happened if users held custody of their assets, or there would be a trustworthy custody provider in that, which quite obviously FTX was not. And knowledge, because neither of the former two are possible without having the education and the knowledge to understand the importance of any of these two. And this should be the learnings, because if I am into cryptocurrencies or blockchain on a bigger scale, then I should understand what I'm doing. And if I understand what I'm doing, then I can take the precautions to not have this happen to me specifically. And if enough people do not have this happen to them specifically, then what's the point of doing it in the case of FTX or SBF? Because then there's just not the capital to pull these kind of schemes with them, right? So I think that should be the learnings for us as a community.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But what do you think about about the rate of BTC, about the price of BTC? What do you think? Will it somehow reflect? Will we, we talked about the bear market before, that like a lot of projects just don't, they're just stuck there. They can't do anything. They're just frozen just because of the bear market. Nobody wants to invest. Nobody wants to invest in crypto. And, I say that, regular people, retail people. It's a funny story, as I said to you like many times already, that it's a funny story that when BTC is 15 or 20, nobody's investing. People are queuing to buy BTC for 60, but nobody wants it when it's like cheap, which for me it's just still a big puzzle. So what's going to happen with the market? What are you as a project, what are you preparing? Obviously you guys have some investments and everything, so how are you treating this market? What is your roadmap, maybe as for the project and for the market, maybe for a year, for half a year, maybe 2 years and 3 years?
So let me start this out with the usual disclaimer. This is, of course, not financial advice, and I never give
Not
financial
no
advice. And
this is
all of the forecasts that I do are definitely not forecasts, but potential outcomes that could happen on the market. So that said, this is, if you will, this is not my first rodeo, right? I've been in this market for a while.
I can see
I've
that.
seen bear markets, and what I've learned is whenever the markets do something that you do not like, take a step back. And the step back in that case would be, don't look at the 1 minute chart, don't look at the 1 day chart, look at where we've been 2 years ago. And if you look at where we've been 2 years ago, we're still in the green. So is it bad that it has gone down that much? Yes, of course it is, especially if you bought in while it was high. But having said that, I mean, now's the opportunity to essentially get into the market at less high prices. Even if you went in when the prices were still higher, you can still do a cost averaging strategy. So if you buy now, essentially your average purchase price for Bitcoin in that case would have gone down. So that's a sound strategy. And by the way, that is actually one of the few strategies that can generally be given. If the market goes down and you're still long-term optimistic for the market, keep buying, because it will just reduce your purchase price of any asset that you buy, right? That said, one of the reasons why we are seeing that kind of extreme cycles that we're seeing on the cryptocurrency markets, in my opinion, is because, as you said before correctly, we are, or a lot of people in the community are relying on cryptocurrencies for the sole purpose of speculation. So they're buying because it goes high, and when it goes high, maybe they start selling, and then we have sell pressure, and then we're in a cycle, right? And one of the antidotes here, and I'm not here to just say eCredits, eCredits, eCredits. I would actually like to spread some knowledge here. But one of the antidotes here is actually projects like eCredits, where we're bringing use cases that are not just used for speculation, but that are instead used for daily use, that where you wake up and use it to buy something at the bakery, and then for lunch you also pay with cryptocurrency, and then for dinner you also use it for something, maybe not even for paying, but maybe for some kind of game that you play with cryptocurrencies, or something else, some other use case where you actually can use it outside of the purpose of speculation. And if you do that to an extent where it essentially outshines all the speculation that is going on, then we also won't have that kind of extreme cycles that we're currently seeing. So that's my view on the market. And generally, what I can also say, after the second or third time of one of these cycles happening, you get a bit more relaxed, because then you actually start looking at the chart on a 2 or 3 year
Yeah.
scale, and not on a 1 day scale.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely my thoughts, how I see it. But what about equal? Like, completely agree with their fact that use cases, the real life use cases are helping here. And I always say that actually the price of crypto is formed by usually three main factors. The trust of people, actually, it's not only crypto but like also fiat money, the trust, and their regulation. Of course there must be regulation, and third is infrastructure. If there is infrastructure, if there is real cases, the more we see it, the better, the bigger the price is. That's 100%. But what about their, like, if we started talking about their future, what about eCredits? Can you maybe give me a couple of paragraphs, like a couple of points for your roadmap for maybe this year? Maybe let's not look into like a very further future, but maybe this year. What do you think? How you guys are
Yeah,
gonna develop?
absolutely. So I think what's important to emphasize before I say anything about the future is the now. And we actually do have a product out there now. It can be used as we speak. So you can go out there, find the next merchant. We do have a map in our application where you can see what the merchant closest to you is, and you can use it. And what's also important to state is it's not just going to be you that's using that. It's almost 100,000 users that are using it. And it's about 1,000 merchants where you can use eCredits. And that is as of now, as we speak. So it's not like
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you about a big product that we are going to build in the future. It's actually existing right now. So what about the future? Um, Essentially, we are at the beginning of what I'd call the growth stage. And I've seen that at a couple of companies in the past. First, you build the product, then, of course, and I will not deny that you bring it out and then you have some bugs and then you go back to the drawing board and redesign some things. We have done that over the past couple of months, and now we're ready to start the next push. And when I say the next push, I'm, of course, talking about marketing push, but marketing by itself is not what makes a project big, right? What makes a project big, in my opinion, is providing value to the customers. And right now, I don't want to spoil too much that I haven't said in public yet, but right now for the next 2 months, we are on a bi-weekly release schedule where we are releasing new features, new things that will make eCredits better and better. And that will be on some part, it will be like comfort features that just make it easier to use. On the other part, it will be completely new things that might be, without teasing too much now, but that might be, for example, a new invitation system that makes it even more attractive and easier to invite new users so that you can essentially interact with them on the eCredits ecosystem. That will, of course, be incentives to bring in more merchants, because essentially we live with the merchants growing and being more available to the users. But there are also quite some features that are interesting in terms of how do you manage your assets in the eCredits ecosystem. What can you do with eCredits in the app itself without interacting with the merchant? And we're going to have more and more features. And as I said, I'm talking around it a bit here because I don't want to spoil too much. But there are quite
Yeah,
some things.
well, I
We're
mean,
pretty much on a bi-weekly release schedule right now.
and that's quite cool. I mean, that's quite cool, especially like in my opinion, if we speak about their all this usability, it's quite cool. And especially like if we touch this subject, I want to ask you also about you already said that you have a map with the merchants. So our users, as you know, our users are Europeans. 90% are Europeans. Of course, we have their exposure in Latin America, we have exposure in Asia, we have exposure, actually quite big exposure in Africa. But I mean, like if we measure everything, it still will be like, okay, maybe 85% Europe, like Central Europe, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, we are huge there. So, where are the merchants? So, for example, I'm an Exmo user. I bought their eCredits, the eCredits token, and not only I have some crypto in my wallet, and I go to their platform, I go to the application. So, where are the merchants? How can I do that? Are they offline or are they online?
We have both. So we have online and offline merchants. So if there's no offline merchant around, you can still use eCredits in the online shops. That said, generally we do work with focus countries and city rollouts, meaning we decide on a country, then we decide on the most important cities in that specific country, and that's where we go from. And the first country that we chose as a focus country was Italy, which is
Oh,
also
nice.
due to that reason where the most merchants are based. And that's actually something I have not said in public, so you heard it here first. I've heard
Wow.
rumors internally that Milan is going to be quite an interesting city to be in the future. But
Nice.
other countries have not been lazy. So even though we focused on Italy over the past half a year, we see enormous activity in Portugal and Estonia, for example. So these have been growing quite quickly, and I'm very impressed to see what they are doing without us essentially providing any infrastructure to have that growth. They just saw eCredits, learned about it, and just went out there and made it grow. I'm super impressed by that because that is what we stand for, right? We grow with the community, and the community grows us. And that is closely followed by Slovenia, for example, but also the German speaking region of Europe is picking up pace. So Switzerland, Austria, Germany. So you kind of can get an imagination from that on what our
Okay.
next focus countries are going to be. And another
That's quite
teaser
cool.
that I think I have not said in public before, because you mentioned it specifically, we are currently very strongly looking into Africa. And I'm pretty sure that we are going to be in Africa in the next half a year or so.
Oh, nice. That's quite cool because this is also one of the regions that we are marketing at the moment, and we actually, how it usually in at Exmo, so we don't market until we see their interest. This is actually how it happened with Italy or like different regions. So we never go out there and try something unless we see the interest. So this is how it works for us. So that's quite cool. I mean, 100%
Same approach
interesting.
for us.
Yeah, well, Italy is quite an interesting region. We actually have some decent amount of Italians, so it's quite interesting also for me. I mean, we never market any German-speaking countries. I'm not going to tease now and say about the licenses there. I'm not going to say that, but it will like we will be also licensed there like at some point. I hope for that. But German speaking countries are just coming, I think, genuinely at our exchange because we have a German language on the website. So it just because we implemented all these languages because there are different people who are living in different parts of the world. For example, like I have in like any nationality but living in London. So I can be any nationality, so I would prefer their website in my own language. But for us, what's important is proof of address. So I can, for example, leave, I don't know, where we have the ability to work in Europe, but can be a different nationality. That's why we actually established this, and we have 12 languages, I think. So yeah, that's quite cool. It's definitely quite cool. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
that's
that's a
quite
necessity. And
interesting.
thank
The
you.
Yeah, the
Sorry, please go ahead.
experience, like when you go to their merchant and you do that offline, in my opinion, this is what's like, it's quite interesting. Online is less for me personally because it's like, it's still a super digital experience with cryptocurrencies. But when you go in the shop and you can use it, it's fantastic.
Absolutely. Like the experience you have paying flawlessly with cryptocurrency within a matter of seconds that easily. I'm always amazed when I do it myself, to be honest, because of course, I do use it whenever I can. And the experience of it is just something else. And the people, like actually the cashiers that are taking the cryptocurrency and that are interacting with eCredits at that point, they're always amazed themselves. So when you go there and say, I would like to pay with eCredits, they immediately have their phone in their hand and they immediately go like, yes, of course, and they type it in and everything works
Nice.
and they're really happy when to use it essentially. And that really is something
I
that
think
I live for. That's something that makes me proud.
It's quite a good strategy, actually. Not that I'm giving you some hints. You can go to any, like, you can pay some people, like some undercover people who will go to every merchant and say, like, I want to pay with e-credits. And they're like, what is this? And they're like, oh, you don't have e-credits. So, like, you send like 20 people in a couple of months and they will call you eventually, So this might work. I don't know. I'm just, giving you some
Believe it or not,
advice.
that is what I'm doing, and I actually didn't invent that by myself. There's this Austrian wine producer called Leo Hillinger, and he famously told on TV at one point when he was just starting out, just started his brand of wines. He went to all the restaurants, and when they asked him what kind of wine he would like to drink, he told them, "I'd like to have a Hillinger, please." And they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, we don't have that." And he looked really disappointed and was like, "What? You don't have Hillinger? Well, the restaurant next door has it. Why don't you have it?" And so I listened to that, and I was like, I'm gonna do that. And so whenever I'm at a restaurant and I pay and they don't accept e-credits yet, I always ask them, do you take e-credits? And when they don't, I really look disappointed. And it does work actually. So that's how
Oh,
we
you
did get a
see.
couple of restaurants.
Oh, you see, it's so funny. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely a good, strategy for acquiring new merchants. 100%. Yeah. No, it's quite cool. It's all quite cool. You said that you're not an idea, and I want to remind all of you guys who are watching. We never list ideas, and in my opinion, if you have an idea, I usually share my ideas because, to have an idea is one thing, but to build it, to raise the money for that, to hire people for that, to actually perform well, to pass all the milestones. This is what matters. This is what matters eventually, and I'm sure, like I'm very happy, guys, to have you on Exmo, and I hope we have some activities for our users. We're not gonna reveal which activities, but we're definitely gonna surprise our clients. So I hope you guys will enjoy Exmo, and I hope our users will be very happy that we list this wonderful project.
I'm confident we will enjoy Exmo, and yeah, I can confirm there will be some incentives, but like you, I will not spoil anything.
Let's keep the mystery because we revealed so much today. So let's keep some mystery at least.
That is true. There's like almost a public announcement of some things to come on our side.
Yeah, but we have all the disclaimers. I make sure we have all the disclaimers on YouTube that this is not a financial advice, guys. We're not asking you to buy anything, and please keep in mind that every investment that you make is on you. You have to switch on your own mind and your own brain before you do something. We can speak about like any project. We can talk about anything that we like, but you have to make your choice by yourself. This is what I usually say. Not only in
Absolutely.
investment, actually, in every choice of your life, it's a very good thing to actually switch on your brain before you before you proceed.
I'd highly
People
recommend
just
that
forget
indeed.
about
Yeah.
this. Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for being with us today, Bernard. That was a real pleasure. And yeah, I really wish you luck, guys. You look very, you look amazing.
Maria, the pleasure was mine. Thank you for having me.